Welcome to the Battle Ready podcast, where we know that every single day is a battle. This show is about equipping you mentally, physically, and spiritually to win the daily battles. I want you to become totally free, whole, and powerful. It's time to step into your battles equipped and ready to win. I'm your host, Dr. Kalie Judge. Let's get battle ready. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Battle Ready podcast. This is Dr. Kalie Judge, and I have a special guest with me, Coach Joe Giustino.
How you doing, guys?
Say hi.
Hi, everybody.
I'm excited to have him here. We met earlier this week. We're shifting into a whole new series now, and we've got Faithfully Fit coming up. We're going to do a 3-part series with Coach Joe. We're going to go through discover, navigate, and then getting to your destination. And I'm excited for this one because it's going to be a little bit different than what we've been doing, shifting gears and really focusing on fitness and health, but really diving into what does our spiritual life have to do with any of that. Joe and I met earlier this week to kind of plan this whole series out, and if you saw the post on my Instagram earlier this week, you noticed that it was just one big page full of scribbles that totally made sense to both of us. So I'm excited to work that out and get it going with you. Joe, I know we just met about a month and a half ago or so, and he is a local business owner. He's got a few different businesses here in St. Charles. One of those is the Speed School, and then another one of those is Core Nutrition. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, not too much into the history, but just surface of like who you are, what you do.
Sure, thank you. Hey, first I want to just thank you, Doc, for having me on. I really appreciate this opportunity. I think it's awesome for fitness professionals or just professionals in any way to come together and collaborate their thoughts and to share a common thread. And the wonderful thing that we have together as our common thread is that our love for Christ is probably the greatest thing that has influenced our life to date. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you do. I also want to say is that I've been in this business for a very long time. I'm going on my 25th year, but I've experienced a lot of different areas and a lot of different methods of health and healing. And what I have found with my experience here at Judge Chiropractic is that it's a very unique approach. It's a very simple approach towards bringing enlightenment and health to people. And with that being said, it's no nonsense. You get what you get, all right? You get what you come for, too, because until you really understand what it is that you really want, all right, you don't know how to get it, right? So when you come to Judge Chiropractic and you come to the type of practice that you have, what you're providing people is a more of an awareness and an understanding of who they are, all right? And you give them a plan of action to going and finding the way who they want to be, all right? So I think with that being said, that's the direction we need, not only in life, but in the healthcare system that we're missing, right? And once people can get a true understanding of that and experience that, then they can really open themselves up to really healing, all right, preventing disease, all right, preventing illness, and having a more joyous, fulfilled life. So I thank you for that angle that you provide us.
Amen. You're welcome.
Amen. So Joe Giustino, I started, born and raised south side of Chicago, and I came up through a kind of a rough crowd. My mom died when I was 11. My dad battled alcoholism. I was raised by my extended family. I came up through the Catholic religion. I went to Catholic school, all through grade school, all through high school. I wouldn't necessarily say I had a true sense of or a great foundation in my faith, but I did leave a little bit of a structured life in the sense that I went to church pretty much every single day, or whenever a saint sneezed, I was in church and did the fundamental things that were appropriate, but never really had a great relationship with God. From there, I went away to school. I played a couple of years of football in junior college. Went away to NIU. Got my degree in strength and conditioning, exercise physiology, kinesiology. I did athletic training. Developed a couple of businesses here in St. Charles. Went through the whole system. Worked in the health clubs. Worked in the private sector. Showed up at people's backyards, worked in parks. I went to every sporting event handing out business cards saying, hey, this is what I do. Can I train your kids? I did whatever was necessary. I mean, I clawed, scratched, and just crawled the surface trying to get ahead. So I did what was necessary. And as an entrepreneur, you learn really quick that there really isn't an ABC 1, 2, 3 in the way of getting forward or finding success. Really, it's just jumping in with 2 feet and going, and just taking your licks as you go.
Yeah.
So now, years later, going on my 25th year in the business here, I've had the speed school now for 12 years. We've opened up core nutrition going on 1 year now in February. So I wanted to bring that, we use this cliche, this total wellness approach to things. Mm-hmm. But the reality is like, what is it that makes people do what they do?
Why do people tick?
Why do we tick, right? So with that being said, that was the biggest struggle I had always had in my life, because I was always trying to fulfill, all right, a more egotistical side of myself. I really didn't have much purpose, So with that, I had to always find external ways. I was always looking for more and more and more ways to provide health, wellness, something for people to latch on to get ahead, to get some yardage, without a tremendous amount of pain. Even though there's pain that is associated with everything in life, you might as well get some yardage out of it, right? We might as well get ahead. Why go backwards when we can get some yardage, even though it's going to hurt, right? Because pain doesn't hurt, all right? Only if you let it hurt. It's how you develop that pain. So if you have a true sense of purpose that's greater than that pain, you get yardage, you move forward, all right? And that's how you grow. And that's how, I guess you can basically say you mature physically, mentally, emotionally. And then the one thing that matters the most is spiritually.
Yeah. So one of the big things, like, guys, if obviously you can't see us talking right now and you don't see Joe, but he is a very large person. He's got big muscles, bald head, beard, tattoos everywhere. So if you see him, you probably look like you probably like first thought is like, oh, that guy's scary. Like he's done some stuff. My question is do you have a soft spot?
Do I have a soft spot? I do, and I think it's and once you get to know me, you get I to know me is to love me. I used to say to people, because I mean my image obviously through all the fall down and get back up, fell down 7, got back up 8, and all the reputation that I tried or that I have for making mistakes. The thing is that you start to believe what you think other people think of you. Right? And so you start to live that life, right? You almost make believe that this world is falling apart for you, and really it isn't, because nobody really cares that much. Nobody really cares about really what you've done that much, and you think more about it than yourself. So I think I put myself in more of a hole in life psychologically, because I felt the guilt, the shame, and the doubt, all right, to not let things go, which kept me more angled, more edgy, more brass, more callous to society. And that portrayed in the way I walked, in the way I carried myself, in the way I presented myself to the world, right? So that maybe was the reason why I would come off as scary to people. But to really know me, to sit down and talk with me and see what makes me tick, see what makes me move, I see what my purpose is, you get to really understand that I have a lot of love in me. For the beginning of my life, for the first 40 plus years of my life, I didn't have a lot of love. I had a lot of hate, anger, resentment, right? And guilt and shame, right? But now I have a lot more love, and it's because I really found what my source was supposed to be, right? So yeah, I do have a soft side. Once you get to know me, I believe that you can see a different side, a side that you can trust, that you see a real sense of genuine and real. That's pretty rare in this world.
Something that you said that I want to dive into, since we're on today's episode is going to be the discovery phase, right? And so something that you said was that when you hear people saying things about you, you start to believe them. And so there's a sense in our society, and I think it's true for everybody, whatever that is. And I heard this definition a few years ago, that if you don't, like this was like a comment towards parents, that if you don't start telling your children what to believe in, somebody else will. What role do you think is played when there are people, kids? I know that your heart is for like the kids, the younger generation, bringing them up, pouring into them. But what's that fine line between, like, how do you know who to believe and what is true about who you are, if that makes sense. Can you decipher that?
Sure. I guess I think what you're trying to say is like, what's your identity?
Yeah.
What's your identity? And identity.
And where along the way do we develop our identity from? Not,
Right.
I don't want you to reveal the big picture, but I want to, like, where along the way do we start, like, just anchoring into our identity factors?
Sure.
Maybe you can use yourself as an example or something.
Well, I think your identity early on in life is developed based on what your parents tell you are, or the people most influential in your life tell you who you are, and then your experiences. So it's a combination of what you experience, and basically what you experience is what you find to be as true, especially if it happens over and over again. So you start to kind of develop a pattern of basically acceptance of that, right? And then whatever it is that your parents or the people that are raising you, taking care of you, all right, basically telling you who you are, you start to develop an acceptance of that too, right? Because you really don't know any different. Unless you help or somebody's teaching you how to develop your own mindset, right? If people are teaching you how to develop that sense of awareness, right? So early on in life, I think initially it's what you experience. It's your environment is your identity. Your identity is like, whatever it is that you're consistently doing daily, every single day as a young kid, right? That's what you identify with. That's why I tell people, don't call your kids baseball players, right? Your kids play baseball, right? They're not a baseball player, right? If they were getting paid, yes, you can call yourself a baseball player, right? Because then it actually, you fit that role. All right, you're being paid for that type of an activity, right? But you're playing baseball at that right now. So what happens when they fail? What happens when they fail at the thing that their mom and dad says that's what you are, right? Then doubt, guilt, resentment, right? Shame. All these different negative emotions start to come in, and they start to frame you, right? And then you develop these emotional traumatic scars. Even something as small as that, where you don't live up to the expectation of what your parents have made out for you, right? And they keep holding you accountable to that expectation, right? Everything is always negative when you don't do well, and the thing that they're trying to identify you with, right? What do you have to fall back on? What happened to, like, hey, Tommy is a loving, caring, joyous person that's happy, and he's friendly, and he's got great manners, and he's somebody that you can rely on, and he's smart, and he's enthusiastic, and he has a lot of integrity. He does what he says he's going to do. And building them up, giving them that identity to fall back on, so that when things are tough, they still know they're a good person. They still know they have great purpose, and teaching them the love of God, that they are enough, right? Giving them that stability and that framework to build from. If you don't have that, right, what are you building off of? You're building off a faulty foundation. Now, I understand the world is constantly changing. Our environments are going to constantly change. But if you have a central focus, a single root, in which we call the vine, right? If you have a root that's planted deep into the soil, right, that has very strong, deep roots, right? The deeper the roots come from, the deeper the faith in what it is that you believe you are, right? There's nothing you can't handle on the outside. And even when things knock you down, you're going to get back up. Why? Because you know confidently, because you've been there before, you have faith, which is called courage, right? That you can venture into things that you don't know, but somebody's got your back, right? You're willing to do it even though you don't know it's going to happen or it's going to end up favorable. You know it's going to work. You don't get that opportunity when you're a kid, right? Especially when parents don't let you think for yourself or don't bring out the creativeness in you. If they tell you who you are, or you grew up in a very traumatic environment where everything is going and you're just surviving this chaos. So I know that's kind of a broad stroke explanation,
that was good.
But in reality, that's what it is. You're a product of your environment until you decide to make your own choices.
Yeah, and I think one thing when I first gave my life to Christ and started going through this transformation, I had my mentor at the time. She sat me down. She's like, "What is your identity?" It's not, and even like you were talking about, like if you're a baseball player that's getting paid, then that's your identity. But like that can be taken away from somebody at any point. Right? So it's not necessarily like chiropractic. I'm a chiropractor. I do chiropractic work, but that's not my identity. Right? And so I think that that's a like kind of a somewhat of a shady gray area if we get too stuck on that, because what can happen then is I can put this place on a pedestal that I'm a mentor, I'm a speaker, I'm a chiropractor, and this and that and another thing. Like, whoa, we got to shift back to, first of all, you're a child of God, and that is your identity, right? And I think that's huge that we miss so much, and so much of our lives are based off of our achievements
Sure.
and our accolades. And now, like, it's social media. Like, how many followers do you have? How many people liked your last post? How many people view your stories? And how many people listen to your podcast or whatever it is? And yes, I think that sometimes from a business perspective, like, you've got to measure the numbers and that kind of stuff too. But then there can be moments of it's like you can fall into a depression, anxiety, whatever it is, if the numbers aren't adding up properly, and you're basing your identity off of that. And so you started getting into like the root and how we develop the root. I know that one of your favorite verses is John 15:5 or
John 15:5. Yeah, that's one of them.
What is it? Tell us about that.
Well, John 15:5 is the only way you can get to the Father is through the Son. But it's John 14:6, I think, what you're referring to is. And in John 14:6, it says, "I am the root, I am the vine, you are the branch, and only through me you bear great fruit. Without me you bear nothing, right? Without you, you have nothing." So what that's saying is that you made a great point, Doc. You said that you do chiropractic care, but that's not who you are. You use chiropractic as your vehicle. You found a great gift. God gave you a gift, a natural skill and ability to be able to show or help heal people, right? Help bring health and wellness to people's lives, right? But you genuinely are the gift. You are the gift, and you have gifts, all right? So if you understand that, once you get, and here's where identity kicks back in, once you get the fact that it's not who you are to you, but it's who you are to Him, and that is your driving force. That's your purpose. That's your identity, what He wants you to be and how He chooses to use you, and how you are able to really be the shining force of the gift that He's created with the greatest materials ever, His love, right? Your true gifts will shine. You will shine, right? Your gifts, the things that you do, your chiropractic care, it's like beams of light. You are a beacon, right? In God's grace. Yeah. So that's the wonderful thing. So with that being said, your roots are as deep as your faith. Your roots are as deep as your faith when you begin to live, right? When you understand your value, what God thinks of you, what He, in His image, what He wants you to be, right? And you truly sense that value and you feel worthy, deep worthiness, okay? And often, all right, what Shannon Graham calls frequency squared. Shannon says that you have the greatest sense of worthiness is felt deeply and often. It's frequency squared, he says. So when you do that, you can connect to the vine that much greater. Your vine is so deep, right? That's your purpose. That's going to fulfill all the great things in your life, and that's going to project you forward. And that's what's going to give you the awesome fruit, which is the gifts that you have. You're going to bear great fruit. You're going to have great gifts, all right, which you can bestow onto the world, all right, and bring people to Him. That's how we are. We are waymakers to Christ. We are waymakers because of the confidence and the courage that He's put into us, right, which has given us that great identity to feed that source, right? So that's it in a nutshell.
My one thing here is that if we've been living thinking one way, if we've grown up and like developed this identity without knowing Christ, without having a relationship with God, how does a person who's struggling in their life have the ability or take the steps to trust God, first of all, and literally surrender their life to Christ?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, for me, what really brought God into my life was that. Well, I'm gonna work backwards. For me, it's after I allowed Him in and I started to look back at my life. I saw and really saw where He was making the moves all the way, all that time. The people He would put into my life was in a way. See, the way God works is this, and this is a firm belief I have. God will alter your situations to adjust the way you process your system, right? So you have a specific system, the way you operate, right? God works through situations. He will throw things in the fire with you, right, to alter your situation or your system. So if your system's off in any way, right, he's going to challenge you. He's going to change your situation, right? He's going to make things challenging in your life. So you're going to have to make changes in your system, or you're going to suffer, all right, and you're going to be unfulfilled, right? You're not going to be happy. You're not going to be joyous, right? So with that being said, I think the way you can alter the way you get forward in life is you have to realize that your system needs to be upgraded, right? So for me, I started to look back and say, wow, I saw how he was moving mountains and how bridges were being crossed and how people were coming in and out of my life. And he even does so now, because now that I'm more aware, and I may get off a little bit here, Doc, but the point is that the more aware I become of that purpose in my life, he is literally punching the thorns out of my heart. He is punching them out, right? And every time a thorn is ripped out, I weep and I bawl and I become emotional. And all that pain, hatred, and anger that I was holding on to for so many years, holding me back, shackling me from his love, shackling me from the gift of myself, who he wanted me to be, right? The greatest gift that I was given was me. I am the greatest gift. I am my greatest creation in God's grace. So it was holding me down because I was holding on to all these bricks, right? It was getting so heavy. And now that the bricks are falling off and the thorns are being ripped out, I can see truly where he has been the true driving force behind my life, right? So all the egotistical things that I was trying to, satisfy, numbers and people and things and accolades and all these different accomplishments that were so unfulfilling, right? That it was like I couldn't make enough money, and it never was enough. I had this business, and I was taking everything for granted, right? Because I didn't love myself enough. I didn't feel the sense of value enough, felt worthy enough of not hurting myself, right? I was feeding the wrong beast, basically. I was feeding the egotistical beast. I wasn't feeding God's grace. I wasn't feeding his love. So for me to have this new sense of identity, I had to fall. I really had to really come into grips with God, and I really had to understand that he was my driving force. He pulled me out of the fire, right? He was standing there next to me the whole time, right? And now that I realize that as he moved everything around for me, the challenge is now when people are struggling, and what should they do? For me, I would say that the most necessary thing to do is when you're struggling and you don't have a reason and you don't necessarily know of God or necessarily know of some higher power and necessarily know if something is best for you, I think we need to fall back into the idea or remind ourselves or think of what is the most important thing to you. What are the things, the top 1 to 5 things that are the most important things in your life? What makes you move? And if you can consider that and write those down and bring those to life and put them on paper, make it physical where you actually see pen to paper, like skin on skin when it comes to communication. If you can bring those 5 things to life, I think you have a great starting point, usually every single day, mostly every single day, of finding what it is that's going to help you develop that identity. All right? And so whatever is important to you, whatever is the things in this world that make your life complete, whether it be God, family, your job, your health, your whatever it is that really gets you up in the morning, that is what you need to hold on to something. You got to start somewhere. You just got to jump. Just like when an entrepreneur, a new business, when you're stuck at a crossroads and you feel like you just have no hope, right? Obviously, God was my hope and your hope, but when you don't have a spot, you got to start somewhere. And starting somewhere is what's important. Because even some of the darkest, deepest, hurting people in this world, there's something important to them. What? Getting up and being there another day, right? So guess what? I gotta find some shelter, right? I gotta get some water. I gotta have some sunlight. I gotta find a bathroom. Whatever the case is, if you're a homeless person, there's got to be some basic priorities in your life, and you start there. So that answers that question.
Yeah, I know. Even for me, it took me a while to really surrender my life to God.
Yeah.
And I think that when it comes down to it, there's people listening that either they're listening because I don't know why, but I just think about like that moment. Like, what was that moment that pushed you from being big tough guy Joe on the scene to discovering that Jesus was your lifeline, this source and that root that you talk about all the time? Like, how did you get from, like you always say this too, is point A to point B. Yeah. A to B is the hardest thing. It's not, everybody always talks about how to get from A to Z, but sometimes the hardest thing is going from point 1 to point 2. And so what does that transition look like?
For me?
For you, or for maybe just some encouragement for anybody sitting there and like stuck on A.
Well, guys, I tell you,
idle.
And it's simple and hard at the same time. The hardest thing I ever had to do. Well, I can't even say the hardest thing, but one of the largest challenges I had in my life was trusting myself. I was a live wire. See, I was really great at stopping things and starting things. I could do everything so well. I developed such a way of being able to operate where nobody behind enemy lines. I used to talk about Rambo, countless excursions behind enemy lines. Like, I was able to just do such amazing things. I could party and drink and do whatever all night long and get up at 2 a.m. or not even go to bed and rock the next day for years without getting sloppy. I was able to maintain a certain level of performance that was second to none. I mean, I was able to just crush it, right? Make money, right? I lived two lives. I created this guy named Coach Joe, right? And that really wasn't me. It was this third person that I thought I needed to be. It was this image, it was this superhuman image that the alter ego of mine that was like, it was fun, it was happy, it was tough, it was mean, it was beautiful, it was strong, it had all the things that it was like the Tyler Durden from Fight Club. I made this guy. And then behind closed doors, I was drinking, drugging, doing all this nasty crap to my life and just totally falling apart with no purpose and dying inside. So there was this one moment, out of many great moments that God talked to me. He spoke to me. And the one thing I want to say more than anything else, I was sitting in St. Gall's Church. I was at an AA meeting, and this Oswego police officer sat down, and he said, and I was drunk, of course, because I used to love to go to AA meetings drunk. And he said, the day I stopped drinking was the day I stopped drinking. And I was just like, I was floored. I was like, what? And for some reason, that day was like a huge changing point for me because it was so simple but so hard at the same time. The challenge for me was like, stop running. Stop running from myself. You can't run from yourself. You can't hide from yourself. And I was trying so hard to hide from myself. Trying to be two different people at the same time. No two things can occupy the same place at the same time. And I was hell-bent on trying to figure that out. I was going to be that person. I was going to solve that great puzzle of being able to lose weight or gain muscle and lose fat. As everybody, I want to gain muscle and lose fat. You know what I mean? And without any flaw or any percent error in either direction, which is a bunch of garbage because it doesn't work. And if it does, well, then you know what? It's not sustainable. So the point was I was trying to do so many things at one time that nothing was getting done. And I kept losing more and more of myself. And then there was a point where I started getting sloppy. And that wasn't the day I stopped drinking, though. I kept going. I kept thinking I could do this. I got a few yards, and I feel better. I can continue to do this. So I stopped drinking so many times. There was one point that I was 7 years sober, and then I went to Vegas of all places, right? And then the last day I drank, and then I couldn't even get home on my flight, so I had to stay another day, and it was just a giant SHIT show. And it turned into be one of the worst downfalls of my life. I spent the next 4 years crashing and burning, 3 DUIs, spent a week in jail for pushing a guy. I mean, I went out and back, up and down, falling on my face, waking up in the emergency room, falling drunk, riding my bike around because I didn't have a driver's license. I mean, but you know what? I always went to work. And I hid from the world. I was hiding. I was these two people, and I always thought, no, nobody can see me. I always was thinking, nobody was paying attention. And little did I know, I was just lying to myself because people knew what was going on. Either they didn't want to hurt my feelings, or they were just trying to support me. And there's a lot of great people in my life that have always had their hand out when I was down, that used to lift me up. And there was a couple really big pivotal moments where I had just became unhinged and got very physically just out of control, and did some just really stupid, destructive things to, with the lack of better explanation, smashed a car window, broke a car door, and I was losing the handles. I was falling off the hinges. And I was going to a therapist at the time every couple of weeks and sat down, and I said, it was 12:15 in the afternoon, and I was just, I knew I had to go to work, and I knew I was drinking that morning. I used to wake up, go to work, and by 8:30 I was knee deep in alcohol, and so I was sitting on this couch, and he was a great guy, one of the elders at the church I was going to. His name is Al, and Al said, "Joe, what's going to be?" And I said, he goes, "I'm going to love you no matter what." He goes, you stop drinking today or you don't stop drinking today, you better keep coming back to my couch because I'm going to love you and I'm going to help you see this through. And it was like September 29th, 3 years ago. I said, forget it. And that day I went home and I stopped drinking. That day I laid in bed in the afternoon after that session, and I was just scrolling through YouTube, and I saw this guy. I saw this I saw this video. It was called Anxiety, Facing Your Anxiety. It was Pastor Stephen Furtick out of Elevation Church in North Carolina, and I was like, whatever, I'll put it on. I started listening to it, and I was swimming in tears, and that day was the day I knew something had to change. That was the day God spoke to me the most. He punched my heart out of my chest, and he ripped me to shreds, brought me down to bare minimum zero. I was just floored. I was gutted, and I went through every single emotion that I think I could think of that day, and I started to get hungry, and I became the most hungry to try to learn more about God, learn more about why the hell am I here, and why am I doing what am I doing, you know what I mean? And all these different things. I mean, we want to talk about new levels of pain. When you start to really dig into your healing process, when you really start to dig into who you are as a person, and what your purpose is, you better be ready to really fight, because that's when the fight really starts. The fight wasn't what you were going through. That was survival. The fight is learning how to live. That's the fight. And the beautiful thing about this, if you were to ask me, Joe, what does success mean to you? Success is awareness. Success is awareness not to get in your own way anymore. Success is allowing what is naturally supposed to happen in your life happen, and letting yourself understand and realize and accepting, surrendering, like you said, when your true value. When you know what your value is, when value meets surrender, then you know that you're worthy of God's love, and you surrender to that, and He's got your back, and He's with you in the fire, right? And that's why you do everything that you do, and that's why He's given you these amazing things to use, and yourself on top of it. You are the gift, and you have these great gifts, and you surrender. That's when real life starts. That's the real battle, right? Because now, that's the courage. See, the courage is the success, the ability to go forward and fight forward, knowing that you don't know what's going to happen, but you're in it anyways. That's all that God wanted from you, and that's what He needs. That unconditional love that He gave you, you give Him. And if you can't get on board with that and realize that that is what is really the purpose of our life today, I don't know what to tell somebody. I just know that as a coach, as a doctor, and yourself, we are the way makers. We are the people that have to live. We have to be that example. And it may take us 38 years, it may take us 44 years to realize that, but I'm glad I realized that now, because I never knew how to live. I always knew how to survive. I could survive like anybody, like Rambo behind enemy lines. I could do it. I can eat things that make a Billy go puke, you know. I was the best of the best, you know. My old man used to hit his hand on the table. He was angry and mad, and he'd smash his hand on the table and say, you know, Joey, we're the best, you know, the best. Everything's the best, right? And I used to see my dad's pain, and I resented him for it. But now that I'm deeper into who I am and understanding why I am the way I am, because of what God intended me to be, then I understand why he put me through all those things. I understand why and how he did, almost to the date and the moment in the actual experience, that I really realized what was going on. And I can reflect back. And you want to talk about a drug being fulfilling and a drug being like euphoric. But when you get answers, like real answers to why you are here, because of what he provided for you, that Holy Spirit, which is Jesus on earth after he has left, after he died, what he's left us on earth is this Holy Spirit. The touching of the Holy Spirit, when you feel that, there's nothing greater than that. That's how I know what my purpose is today. That's how I know, because I can reflect back and see. I can look back and see where he has been in my life since day one, guiding me, molding me, making me who I am today, and what greatness he's going to use in through me moving forward. And that's just that in a nutshell is enough for me, you know.
So there was a part. First of all, thank you for sharing.
That was a lot.
That was. I love it. There was a part where he talked about being able to get ready, like once you give your life to Christ, get ready to fight.
Yeah.
Was there ever a moment where once you did that and you had to feel all the feels finally? Was there ever a moment where you wanted to throw in the towel and just go back to survival mode and where you were and it was easier then type of a thing?
Well, I think every day we get challenged. I think that's what the challenges are, maintaining that level of integrity, you know, that integrity that God wants us to have, you know, to truly have a Christ-like heart and live a Christ-like way. And I think that's the challenge every single day for all of us Christians, is that we have to stay in the fight. And the way you stay in the fight is like what we talked about, right? You have boundary, right? We have rules, right? We have standards, right? If you have a Christ-like standard, if you have a spiritual standard, your code that you live by, right? You can support the mental aspect of life, the physical aspect of life, and the cognitive aspect of life. How you think, feel, and act all reflect where you are spiritually, right? So if you're spiritually sound, you plant those roots deep, all right? And you are the true branch bearing great fruit, right? You're constantly working that system. So that when you do have those challenges, when you do let for a moment doubt in, right, or shame in, or guilt in, or if you feel some form of regret or whatever negative feeling that you may be going through, all right, because of maybe just being a little bit off tilt at the moment, or you're feeling sorry for yourself and you want to go there and you want to refer to yourself back as some previous experience, right, because it's more comfortable right now because you're angry, right? It's a choice. And the wonderful thing God gave us is free will. You can choose. I'm the way. You can, but I'm going to give you the opportunity to make that choice for yourself, right? Now, I hope you make it in the right way, right? I'm going to give you a set of commandments that I want you to follow so you don't hurt yourself, right? It's not like do this or you're going to be punished. No, you're going to be punished because of what you do to yourself, because you're not going to be able to handle what you did, right? So inevitably, why does somebody get caught? If you rob a bank, why do they get caught? Why do most people get caught when they rob a bank?
Because, I don't know. They're not good at...
Because they're guilty, right? They feel the guilt and they got to go tell somebody, right? And they usually tell because they're happy or they're excited about something, right? But really it's just guilt showing itself in a different way, right? They just can't hold it in. They can't hold it in, right? And that's guilt just trying to get its way out, right? So they have to go tell somebody, and then somebody tells on them, and then they get caught, right? So the reality is that, like, truly we are all great people inside. God made us great. He made us in his image, right? So we're all good people. We just get a little bit sidetracked. And the problem is that sometimes we get so stuck, and I don't want to say it's stuck, but we become dead in our path, right? That we can't separate ourselves from our past. And if you can't separate yourself from your past and you keep reliving your past, right, that becomes your reality, right? So we have this like massive cognitive dissonance in our life, and we are not able to get moving forward. So when you say, what do you do to get out of that rut, right, you have to go back to zero. Right, you have to go, what's important to you, then you got to go after it. You got to actually jump into feet. So when you're subjected, all right, to bad behavior, when you're subjected to stress or that trauma, or you're being influenced, right, and you're being challenged, right, what do you got to do? You got to make a conscious effort at that moment. If you can slow it down, bring it down, slow what's going on down, make a cognitive effort to change, right? You have to make a more educated, all right, ability. Like we have reaction. We can react to things, in life. When we react to stuff, usually it's in a negative way, all right? Or we can respond. Responding to something means that we've actually taken the negative emotion out of it, all right? And we are more apt to making a better decision because we're able to bring it down to zero and not make bad decisions and go in the direction that we shouldn't go. So when we're being tempted, we know we're being tempted. Most of us can slow it down, all right? But what's winning the fight that day, right? Is it the past that's haunting us and the trauma that we've never been able to get through, or is it our newfound source of inspiration, which is God? You got to resort. If you're not working that spiritual path, if you're not working that spiritual foundation, right, your physical life is going to be neglected, your emotional life is going to be neglected, and your emotional life is going to be affected. So thinking, feeling, and acting are all going to be skewed, right? One of those walls in your world are going to be compromised, and then what happens?
You crumble.
You crumble, right? Or we find reasons to blame other people, right? Or we make excuses for it. And the reality is this because you became unplugged.
Why do you think it's easier for people to go back to the past or stay in the past or stay where they've been instead of facing the pain to find their purpose?
Because it's easy, it's comfortable, and it's something that you're familiar with. You're familiar with that, right? And if you've been there before, you're more confident that you can stay there, right? So people, it's easy to go back to what you've always done, right? You've been there before, it's easier to do, it doesn't take a lot of energy and effort. See, courage is when you're in the fire, right? If you have God on your side, you are more courageous, right? Right? If you listen to any worship music, it's about being in the fire and being confident and being courageous in God's will. So, having the courage that He is with you, right? And when He's with you, see, God doesn't speak to you when you're going through it. He talks to you when you're still afterwards, right? He's wanting you to go to Him when you're going through it. It's what He's prepared you for. It's the negative and the good stuff that He's built into your system, right? So that, like, when you're hit by a situation, you can fight through it, right? And then when it's all said and done and you get through the other side, that's when He speaks to you and He rebuilds you and He builds you up and He pulls all, and He heals your scars and He heals your wounds and He nourishes you, right? And then He puts you back in the fire. He sets you out there for another fight. And as Christians, we need to be in that fire. It's our obligation as Christians, right? We need to witness and tell people that there's a better way. So with that being said, that fire that you're in, right, that is baptism, right? That's true baptism. That shows faith. That shows courage and confidence that everything that He's been working on gets you through it. And you're going to fall down. You're going to have scars, right? But where are you going to go nourish yourself? Back to the well. At the end of it, when it's still and it's over with, are you still with them, right? When they're hurting and they're down, everybody wants to praise God, right? But when things are good, what don't we do? We don't go to church. We're not praying. We're not talking about Him. We're not living in His, living in His Word, right? We're not doing the necessary things to keep spreading His Word, right? We get lazy. So how do you stay unlazy? How do you continue the mess when things are tough? You got to stay spiritually sound, right? And if you're not doing that, you're not giving credit where credit is due. Right? That's your source. Your source needs to be plugged into every day. Hey, we'll plug our phone in every single day, don't we? Right? We make sure we do that. Right? This is important. Right? Priorities. Things aren't. There's no such thing as procrastination. Right? right? It's priority, right? We don't forget, oh, well, it's not important right now, or, oh, I forgot. No, you didn't forget. It wasn't important. See, what's important to you, right? You take care of it. You nurture it, right? It's top priority in your life. You get it done, right? So, like when it comes to training and things like that, kids come in, they're half asleep, they forgot their shoes, they didn't eat. Why? It's not priority. See, training with me at that moment right then and there, it may not be overall, but at that moment it wasn't priority to them, right? Oh, but they still showed up. And see, the world meets people halfway with this garbage, right? We give people an out all the time, and that's what the downfall of society has become. This is what I find is the problem with our world today, is that accountability isn't there to hold people to their purpose, right? You know why? We're not helping kids establish. We're not helping people establish their purpose. Why? It's not cool. It's not fun, right? It takes effort, right? You have to sacrifice. You may have to do things that you don't want to do when you don't want to do it, right? It may not always be, it may cost money once in a while. It may take this, that, and the other thing. It may make you feel uncomfortable, right? And anything worth having doesn't come easy. And God said that in the Bible, right? And I don't know what verse it is in the Bible that he talks about that, but things are not going to be easy. Standing in the fire with Jesus is not going to be easy. Standing in the fire with your faith is not going to be easy, right? But it's necessary. Because you can see it like this, and I'll tell you this. This is what's true. Here's the spiritual truth. Jesus is the constant. He's clocking down the road, right? He's the train on the track. Boom, ba, boom, ba, boom, ba, boom. Are you getting on that train or not, right? If you got another way, you're just revolving around that constant until you catch tread. Once you catch tread, guess what happens? Boom. You explode, right? You catch tread and you're on your way. But if you weren't circling the train, right, while it's moving, if you're standing still, that train's gone. You got to get with the constant. You got to start moving. You got to start doing something, because once Jesus comes through with his blessings, it's like the ice cream truck without the bell, right? Right? Now here, look at here. I'm going to tell you something. If you look at life and you're preparing yourself to put you in great position, life is about preparation. You prepare, you're doing what is necessary. You're building yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, getting yourself ready. You put yourself in that great position. What is that position? That position is the right place at the right time, right? So when the blessings and the opportunities come, right, you're there, right? Julian Edelman goes the same route 5 billion times. Why? Because Tom Brady is putting the ball right where he needs to put the ball, right? Edelman needs to go 5 steps right, 5 steps left, boom, there's the ball, right? Practice, prepare, in position, ball in hand, touchdown, right? Same thing with your life. Now, if he's 1 step too short, 1 step too fast, right, where's that ball? He's not in the right position. That means he's got to go out of his way to get that ball, all right? So sometimes we got to make adjustments and changes, all right, to continue to position ourselves. That's why we're constantly growing and maturing. We can't stop at 10. 10 is just a number, right? 10 is the status. That is ego. 11, 12, 13, 14, and all the way up. This is endless amount. There's no book on how great we can be, because God made us infinite that way. In our greatness, right? Because if he's given us all those great tools, it's infinite in what we can become. Why should we hold ourselves back? Right? So when we're moving through life and you see God's blessings, right, they're always coming. They're always out there. They're circulating our atmosphere, right? These opportunities are circulating. All these great things are happening in the world. And why do people have better opportunities than other people? Because they're positioning themselves for the ball. And the ball doesn't have a siren on it. Right? The ball doesn't have highlights on it. It's got neon lights. It doesn't come with a bell. Like I said, it's that opportunities like the ice cream truck without the bell. If you're in the right place, there it is. Right? So that ice cream truck's going to go by. When we were kids, there was a bell. Right? You knew it was coming. Right? You got excited. But now it's like right place at the right time. And then once you continue to do that more and often, you build the confidence that you're doing the right thing. Right? The more confident you become, the more courageous you are to putting yourself in the right position. You keep leveling up. You get deeper in your faith. You become greater up that ladder, right? And you keep growing as a person. You're growing and growing and growing, and that growth is maturity. But here's the beautiful thing about growth. Growth isn't about always moving forward. Growth is about getting rid of things that don't work anymore. Getting rid of the past, dropping the bricks, getting rid of the things that aren't going to help spring you forward. Right? That's where the maturing thing becomes, right? As we mature, we don't act like a child anymore, right? We get rid of the childlike emotions. We get rid of the childlike thoughts. We get rid of the childlike behaviors, right? Now, getting back to the big picture, identity, okay? Our identity is how we think, feel, and act, right? Our actions are our behavior. So when you have an identity, you know who you are. Here's your A. And who you want to be with an E, right? That first step, A to B, like in the alphabet, but who you want to be, right, has everything to do with your behavior, right? Who am I now and who do I want to be? The quickest distance between 2 points is what?
Straight line.
A straight line, right? And I know I can survive on a 3 to 5% error. I can survive on a 25% error. I've proven it, but I don't want to live that life, right? There's too much trauma to go along with that. There's too much baggage to carry to go along with it. I'm getting too old for that, right? I've matured past trying to carry around all those bricks. I want a 3 to 5% error, which is just natural occurrence of error. I mean, you know what? They're going to have bad days. Why? It's going to snow, right? It's going to rain. People aren't going to be happy every day. You're going to have to adjust. You're going to have to bob and weave. You're going to have to make those adjustments so that you can position yourself. So that 3 to 5% error is natural occurrence, right? I'd rather live in a level of life where things are happening the way they're supposed to be than the way I have to force them to be because I'm feeding the wrong purpose. The wrong purpose is ego. It is status. It is what I haven't accomplished yet. I have accomplished everything I need to accomplish, and now it's time to actually let that real accomplishment, right, the real gift, which is myself, to be shown to the world, right, through the love and the caring and the honesty and the giving, right, and all the beautiful things that God bestowed into myself and like yourself through our craft, through our profession, through our hands, right, and really improve our relationship with Him and help other people improve their relationship with Him too.
Yeah, I think one of the things I was thinking about when you were talking about the ice cream truck thing, like back in the day, really sometimes the only time you got ice cream was when the ice cream truck came by, right? And so I think about now, like you can go to a 7-Eleven pretty much on every corner, or a Casey's, or a whatever gas station you want to name, and there's ice cream. Or the grocery stores, there's ice cream, and then there's a child somewhere having a fit that they're not getting the ice cream. And so I was just thinking about like the opportunity growth. The more we have, the more opportunities we have. It's almost like personal development gets weakened. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so when we stop with like remove the fluff around our lives and like go back to the times, like super simplify everything. Get rid of the cell phones, get rid of the computers and the microphones and the iPads and all the things that we have around us, and like how do we get in a conversation and communication with God? You said it yourself earlier. You get quiet. You get in there. You start praying. You start asking. You start seeking. You start knocking. And that's when God shows up every single time. I've never had a moment where I've been like, God, come talk to me. Come like show me the way. Like help me out here. God is a faithful Father, and He wants to guide us. He wants to give us choices and opportunities and chances. And I was thinking about the train like passing you by over and over and over again, and then the thought of like as soon as you like every time I think of like the downtown Geneva train comes by and it stops and then it flies by you and then it comes back and it stops and it flies by the other direction, and like that's happening all day long. And if somebody just stood on the train track right there and they never actually got on the train, they wouldn't be able to go to see the Bean in the city. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't be able to go stop in Wheaton and see what's going on over here. They wouldn't be able to go see what's happening in Oak Park. They wouldn't be able to go see the Daily Park, and they wouldn't be able to go see Magnificent Mile, and they wouldn't be able to go see all these things because they didn't just take a step, right? And so that's what it takes to get with God and to allow Jesus to come into your life. It's an acceptance from you, right? And then you were also talking about strong and courageous. And one of my favorite verses is Joshua 1:9. And I think even in like the whole book of Joshua, be strong and courageous is like the theme of that book. And it is just like anytime anything's going wrong, it's like be strong and courageous, be strong and courageous. And so sometimes people think about like, oh, I got to go memorize a verse and I got to do this and I got to do that. And there's no way that I can memorize a verse. And it's like, man, just start there. Be strong and courageous. There's your verse, Joshua 1:9. Write that down. Be strong and courageous. And read that to yourself as you're going through life, as you're going through your circumstances. When you get in your car, if you just had a bad day, remind yourself of your identity. Where is your source coming from? Your source isn't coming from the chaos that's around you. Your source is coming from the peace that's in the boat, the calmness that's in that boat with you. Yes, there's a storm happening, but Jesus just sits up. He's like, why y'all fools, acting crazy? Like, it's calm. Be calm. Peace, be still. Peace, be still. We got about 10 minutes, not even, like 5-6 minutes. How do you want to wrap this up with discovery? What are some nuggets to have people kind of walk into navigation that we're going to go through next week? But how do we wrap up discovery and kind of fit it in with that?
Well, I mean, obviously today was a moment and an opportunity for us to just kind of open up. And if I could go back and redo this, I probably would, because I mean, I had kind of a game plan of what I wanted to say, and it just never seems to work out that way. When it comes to opening up your heart, things just start to pour out. But
I think what happens is that we plan, and we have an idea of what's going to happen.
And then boom.
But what's the best part about this is that the people that I'm having on this podcast, and if you're listening, like, go back, but every single one of us has planned something or had an idea in the mind.
And then you get hit.
And the Holy Spirit comes in and is like, no, I want you to talk about this. I want you to say this. And so I think that the message that you said today is the most powerful message that could have come across for these listeners.
Yeah, thank you. What did they say? Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until they get hit, right?
Mm-hmm.
God hits you with something else. Yeah? You come walking in with this idea, and bam, he leads you in a different direction. I saw this. I was in men's group this morning, and we were talking about accountability and purpose and so on and so forth, being a Christian, like a guy like man. And we went through this discovery stage. I want to kind of segue into this navigation stage, and I'm going to refer to a Bible scripture, Matthew 7, verse 13. It refers to our path, and as we navigate, we have to understand our path. And it says, "The gate to destruction is wide, and the road that leads there is easy to follow." Mm-hmm. So, what does that say? I mean, to me, that means it's like, hey, we have every opportunity to make mistakes. We have every single opportunity in this world to get off path. I mean, it is easy, it's accessible. I mean, we have an app for everything, right? Mm-hmm. If you want this, there's an app for it. If you want this, there's a deal for it. There's a special deal. There's a buy one, get one. But I'll tell you one thing. Greatness is never on sale. Greatness is always full price, right? Greatness, so you'll never find it on an end cap. Greatness will never be on some type of Groupon. Greatness is never in flashing colors. Greatness is the hard, narrow road, right? The hard, narrow road. And it is a road that is not traveled very often, and it is a road that can be deep and dark and under construction daily. But it also can be the most wonderful place in your life if you let it and if you allow it. And what I've learned through all of this is that I always tell kids and tell people, I said, the life is like the world, it's like the forest, and you have to understand, you need to be able to see the forest amongst the trees. The trees are our obstacles, right? And I understand the obstacles are the way. We have obstacles, and that is the way to true enlightenment, but you don't need to be one. Mm-hmm. You don't need to be an obstacle. Right? We don't need to be in our own way, and this is cliche today. You listen to any self-help thing, and we all say the same things. Don't be the problem, right? That's it in a nutshell. You see, it's not that we have problems; it's we are the problem. And when we realize that we are the problem, right? It's because of the way we are evaluating and aware of what our current situation is. Then we can change, or where our current system is, then we can change our situations, right? When our system is flawed, the way we walk, if our walk isn't narrow and has purpose, it's a long, slow, painful walk, right? But when you accept God in your life, and you make Him your reason, and you understand that everything you do is for Him, and that is very hard for people to understand. To get to that level is very hard. And I think every single person in this world, I don't care how close you are or what status you have in the church or whatever the case may be, we all struggle, right? Because why? We have everything at our fingertips. We can have the good, the bad, or whatever. right? That line is so tight between light and dark. 1 second you can be in one direction, 1 inch you can be in the other, right? However you want to, whatever your metric is. Being tied into the vine is the greatest gift that you can have, right? Because it allows you to be you. And who are you? You're what he wants you to be. And that's it. And once you can get to that level, I'm telling you, life starts. That's surrender. That's surrender. But it takes a hell of a lot of personal value and worthiness to get there. Your worth and your value, right, is what he intended it to be, what it has always been, as you spent your life destroying it. All right, and undervaluing and devaluing and whatever it is that you wanted to do to yourself along the way. Until you stop hurting yourself, all right, can you truly start to live life. Amen.
Ah, that was good.
That was good.
So we didn't really talk about fitness today.
I think fitness is a result of all of this.
I think so too. So
can I say one thing?
Yes.
I want to say one thing. I ran over a study, and I left it in the car, but it doesn't matter. The point is that there was a study found on what percentage, what variable, all right, between basal metabolic rate, okay, how many calories you burn during rest, the thermic effect of food, exercise, and your daily physical activity. Now think about this. Overall, your total caloric expenditure is based on those 4 variables. How often do you exercise? The quality of your food, all right? How active you are, okay? And your basal metabolic rate. So your basic state of survival, all right? The greatest percentage on total caloric expenditure per day was 60% at your basal metabolic rate, okay? Being active was 40%. And then it was equal. 20 was the thermic effect of food and 20% exercise. All right, so I don't know if that all adds up, but the point is that it was statistically significant that your basic ability to stay alive, right, had the greatest impact on your ability to burn calories throughout the day and mobilize and operate. So just your steady state, how you live, how you operate, all right, had the greatest impact, greater than exercise, greater than being physically active, and greater than the type of food that you eat, the thermic effect of food, right? So the better food that you eat, the greater calories you burn. The crappier the food, the less calories you burn. The more exercise, the more calories you burn. Less exercise, but exercise, which we all think had the greatest impact. So status and external life, our external accomplishments, which I'm going to refer to as exercise, our physical being, because we put so much value in how we act physically, what we look like, all right, how we exercise, our body images, right? It has the littlest amount of impact on our overall ability to survive. And I don't even mean survive, but really thrive. How you stay alive, think about that, has everything to do with how you live. And your basal metabolic rate is how you process. What is your physical, mental, and emotional state like to maintain life? Right? If you have a great spiritual awareness and a great sound spiritual base, right, you are in the driver's seat. All right? You are in the driver's seat to heaven. Right? And you're bringing every person with you. Because you are like glue. Everything is going to stick to you.
Preach. All right, so next week we are going to talk about navigating through this Faithfully Fit thing. And I think that was a good segue into... okay, I've just discovered myself, and now how do I put in the work, really, is what navigation is going to be about, because that takes work. In order to get somewhere, you got to figure out, you got to map it out, and have the correct map, because there's so many, I can Google something right now and, come up with 60,000 different ways to work out, and what's wrong, what's right, what works for everybody. And so we just want to help clear up some things, but really just help you navigate on what's right for your body, because every body is different. And so, Joe, I just thank you for being here. I'm excited for what this is going to be. I pray that this just blesses just one person that needed to hear this today. Hopefully more, but if it's just one, then that's good.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Any parting words, any quick super summary recap, one paragraph, one sentence thing that you want to leave these guys with for this week?
Well, I think I'm going to credit back to just kind of where a lot of this this movement, this revolution of myself started, was really early on, and before I was even really devout into Christ as much as I was. I had a proverb on my tack board when I was a kid. Is Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so one does another. And then so they got me thinking like, oh wow, cool, that's great. Everybody uses that. It's a pretty cliche Bible verse. Everybody uses it, but those who persevere will be champions. And what does that mean? Those who work hard will win. And winning, guys, is joy. Winning is fulfillment. Winning isn't always a number. Winning isn't the W or the L in a game. Winning isn't like gaining some type of financial success or accompanying some type of wins and losses on the field. Winning, guys, is happiness and being fulfilled. So those who really put the work in, those who diligently seek Christ, find Christ, and be able to have a great working relationship with Christ, guys. If I can say one thing that'll at the end of this podcast more than anything else, it's not religion, it's not the practice of anything, it's the relationship that you have with Jesus. It is the fact that you have a personal relationship with him, meaning like you go to him, you talk to him, he's your friend, he loves you and he cares about you, and that's it. And to know that person is an unconditional love, like your motherly love, is really true joy and true fulfillment. So those who persevere, those who work hard, will win and be joyous and fulfilled. Yeah,
and that's not, like you said, like that's not saying go get a whole bunch of jobs done, go check the boxes. Like, just because you're reading the Bible, and like this is my life too, like just because I was reading the Bible, just because I was going to church, just because I had the knowledge of who Jesus was and what the story of the Bible was, does not mean that I had a personal relationship with him. And it wasn't until I had that surrendering moment of, all right, fine. Like, you want my heart, come take my heart.
Exactly.
You want my life, come take my life. I'm done trying to do this on my own. And that was that moment where, if you haven't experienced that, there's like you were talking about, there's no drug that can supersede the feeling of the Holy Spirit in your life.
I have tattooed on my back, Doc, real quick. I tattoo on my back, clear eyes, full heart, can't lose. When your eyes become clear from your awareness, you can truly see what he's showing you, right? Seek, and you shall find, right? Ask, and you will receive, right? Knock, and he will answer, right? That acronym, ask. Ask, and you will receive. Seek, and you shall find. And knock, and he will answer, right? Clear eyes. Your eyes are clear. That is the only time when your heart can be full, right? And how do you lose then? How can you lose when you're filling your heart? Yeah. That's how God speaks. He speaks through the heart.
Amen. I feel like you and I could go on for another 6 hours, so I'm going to just cut us off. Otherwise, we're going to be otherwise we're going to keep going back and forth, and these people might get bored with us. So, guys, I thank you for listening. Stay tuned. We've got 2 more weeks with Coach Joe. We're going to be going through navigation and then destination for the last 2 weeks. And if you've listened and you liked it, please share this on your Facebook pages. Go on to the podcast, actually subscribe to it. And if you would love to, please leave a 5-star review for me. That would be amazing. Helps with the ratings and all that stuff, but that doesn't even matter. But share it on your Facebook pages, put it on your Instagram pages, do a hashtag Battle Ready, tag Battle Ready Co. Whatever it is, let us know that you're listening, what you liked about it, and we can't wait to spend 2 more weeks with you. Joe, thanks for being here. Love you. We'll keep it going for you guys. Peace.